voice is a little rough because I had a really long night, and the cats, and I'm allergic to cats, and we have a cat in the house, so if he gets a little too close, I spend quite a bit of time coughing. But I'm kind of excited. Today is the day that my friend and I do a day of Scottish cooking. We're both, we'll do Lorne Sausage, Clootie Dumpling, probably not a lot of crochet, but I will share with you recipes and information about some really nice Scottish foods. So it's an hour away, and I do have one last thing I have to pick up to the store. So let's go. So it's a misty, frosty morning this morning. I need to clear the car and of ice, and then we'll get on the way. Yay. Now the next stop is to get some gas, and then I will be on the road for Scottish cooking. Very, very fun day of making traditional Scottish foods for the Christmas time. The first item we'll be starting on is the Clootie Dumpling, because it takes so much time to make that recipe. However, before that, we need some munchies for the day. So I'll be putting a baked brie in Chardonnay and rosemary in the oven.
Thank you for the molasses.
Okay, so we'll just let that bake until it gets nice and golden brown and bubbly. Back to the Clootie Dumpling. You want to keep your wet and your dry ingredients in two separate bowls. Dry ingredients are really everything you'd expect. The wet ingredients include canola oil, golden raisins, regular raisins, grated carrot, a grated skinned apple, 1/3 cup of molasses, and 1/2 to 1/3 bottle of Guinness. Okay, so we're starting with the Clootie Dumpling, and we're going to separate the dry ingredients from the wet ingredients.
She doesn't know what she's doing. You have to start over now.
Okay, Clootie Dumpling, take 2. We're going to separate all of the dry ingredients, from the wet ingredients, which will actually have more wet ingredients, but right now it's just the raisins. And that is 1.5 cups of golden raisins, and which in Scotland they call sultanas, and then 3 cups of, regular old raisins, the itty bitty dried up kind. And then we're gonna put in some canola oil and grated carrots, grated apples, and lots of molasses. 1/3 cup of molasses, actually, which is plenty. And then we need some Guinness Stout, because every good recipe contains alcohol.
So you gotta, basically what you're trying to do is seal so you can make a
So like,
seal,
yeah.
right? And I always do it twice. When I'm done with this, I'll shake it out and do it again. And I've never had one collapse.
It's
But I don't
this
know
is
if that's why.
really, really important. This is one of the most important steps, actually. We had one year where there was it was teeny tiny, and it was mine.
Teeny tiny.
It was a teeny tiny
Oh, hole.
hole, and it was the one that I did. Obviously, I think it was one of the first years, and I guess
Just trying to say that to make me feel better.
no, it was true.
You're so nice.
We used to make 2 Clootie dumplings.
So we would roll our stuff out together here. It's always fun.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Once that is completely done, the first go round, then what we'll do is pick up all of the edges on this, shake it out, and then do one more round of sealing that muslin. All right, these wet and dry ingredients are looking great. The dry ingredients include a pound of self-rising flour, 1 slice of coarse brown bread, chopped fine in a food processor, cinnamon, ginger, clove, allspice, and brown sugar. That muslin is looking great. And now we're ready for maybe some brie snacks. That brie is looking so yummy. We'll definitely dig into that. The next thing to do is to mix the dry and
it's more like
wet ingredients.
it's not
And you
a
really do
picture,
want it to be
it's
pretty
like you
sticky
take a picture and turn it into
because
art.
we're gonna be
So it's got all
creating a
these,
very
really
dense
colorful, I don't know.
British pudding.
And
This Clootie dumpling, once it's all mixed in, we're gonna dump it, and this is very critical because you do not want anything to come up. Once it's down, it needs to stay down. So you want it to go right in the middle of the muslin. And the reason you don't want it to come up is because if anything picks up, it'll ruin the seal that we created. So it's really important that even that little spot right there, we don't pick up. We have to leave that in place because it will ruin the seal. And if you ruin the seal, then it will not cook correctly.
So you grab all the corners and just make sure that you grab at the lowest point so there's no opening that's leading into the dough, right? And then we're gonna, once you do that, you get it all bunched up and then you tie it about 2 inches above the dough ball. You tie it super tight. And that's your kind of sealed bag. And the reason that they call it a Clootie dumpling, have you ever felt a full diaper before?
No, yes.
So feel this. It's like a full diaper. Now, if you want to just put the string around right at about here, and you're leaving room for steam to build up inside, and tie it super tight and run it around a few times. Go a little bit lower. There you have it.
is the water boiling?
The water should be close. So just set it back in the bowl. This one, I guess, this is cool too. Yeah, and so we'll just wait.
So we're cooking a little bit of lunch while we're waiting for the water to boil for the Clootie dumpling and enjoying the baked brie and Chardonnay.
Drop the ball into the boiling water, hang the edge over top, and the ball should float. 1 hour, then move it out to the opposite side of the pot breaker for another hour. After the first 2 hours, turn it over in 2 hours. There's a plate at the bottom because you don't want the cloth to get stuck to the bottom of the pot. If it,
Oh, that's not gonna really work. say that both Stacy and Alistair are amazing cooks.
Oh my God, that's not true.
Whatever.
So,
I have like 5. Lemon juice, olive oil, extra virgin because regular virgins just will not do.
Maple syrup.
A dollop of maple syrup. You're losing me, Stace. Actually, the funny thing is, I've had this before and it's very delicious. Salt.
Salt. Pepper. And that's it. On arugula. On a rocket salad. La 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 la.
So how long did we boil it for on this side?
1 hour.
We boiled it for 1 hour on this side. It's got to be floating, so you see how it's floating. Floating, floating, floating. I think I'm so funny. I amuse myself all the time. All right, now we're gonna put it on the other side. What are we doing here?
So we've got to replenish the water, but we want to put hot water in it, not cold water. So I've got to boil a kettle.
We're gonna turn
Go
it
to the
over.
other side.
Go to the other side and put the lid back on. And as soon as the water boils, we will replenish the water because the steam has.
I want to make sure that the plate is under the okay.
She's making sure the plate is under the dumpling, just in case you didn't hear that.
Well, I need more water first. Yeah, I'm waiting for the water to boil. I just filled it up.
Oh, you just
Yeah, I'll call you when it's out of the water. I put it all in there, but so now you have to turn it, put everything in there, and turn it upside down, which is a little dicey because you've got this knot that has to float underneath it. So wear a silicone glove if you've got one to do that. And now we'll pour some more water over top of this, hot water, and then it should float back up.
All right, now that we have made the Clootie Dumpling, or at least we've got it started, we're moving on to Lorne Sausage and Shortbread, except that we did take a break and watch Last Christmas with Emilia Clarke. I'm not going to give it away, but it's not a traditional rom-com Christmas movie, and I love it. I highly recommend it. You should check it out. All right, so the next job is to get the sausage. We're going to have ground beef and ground pork, breadcrumbs, pepper, nutmeg, coriander, salt, and a little bit of water. go heavy on the spice because it's always better that way. Right, Stacy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Spice is always good for your life. And then after that, we're gonna make the shortbread, which is a super easy recipe. Brilliant.
Okay, so now it's time to gather all of the ingredients, and we each have a job to do to mix and create the Lorne sausage, which is a traditional Scottish sausage. Sometimes it's called square sausage. Don't mind me, I might be dancing in the background half the time. Okay, so for this Lorne sausage, it's really, really quite delicious. It's square sliced sausage. So you're really going to take equal parts of ground beef and ground pork. And you don't want it to be too lean or else the sausage is going to be dry. But you do want to get the finest, the best cut that you can afford as long as it's sausage. I mean, as long as it's pork and beef and has a fair amount of fat still in it. So for our recipe, we used 2 pounds for each person that was bringing home sausage. So you'll have a nice amount of sausage that you can freeze and cook for the entire year. So 2 pounds of ground beef, in Scotland they call it mince, and 2 pounds of ground pork. You also want 3 cups of breadcrumbs, and 2 teaspoons of pepper, nutmeg, 3 teaspoons of coriander, salt, and a cup of water, 3 teaspoons of salt. Now, we always put more pepper, nutmeg, and coriander in it to give it that good, really good Scottish flavor. And you're going to mix these really well by hand and put them in an oblong pan. And really what we mean is a loaf pan for bread. And you're going to place it in the freezer long enough till it's starting to set, and then just enough so that you can slice them. So you want to slice them when they're just frozen enough. Then when you've sliced them into about a 1/2 inch thick slices, then you're going to store them in the wax paper so that you can pull them apart very easily. I like to store them in gallon-sized Ziploc bags in the freezer so that we can easily take them apart and have them for a good Scottish fry-up for breakfast. But really, you can have them anytime that you want. Okay, now let's turn towards the shortbread. Now that we've got that Lorne sausage all very well mixed in together and it's starting to set in the freezer. For shortbread, it's an incredibly simple recipe. If you want great, really rich, really delicious shortbread, you want to keep the recipe as simple as possible. So for this recipe, it's 1 cup cornstarch, 1 cup confectioner's sugar, 3.5 cups of flour, and 1 pound of butter. And you want that to really be in room temperature, nice and soft. So you're going to sift all of the cornstarch, the sugar, and cut the flour into the butter. Then you're going to blend it together until it's soft. And then you want to, then what you're going to do is create really nice square rolls so that you can put them in the freezer, and when you're ready to cook them, you can slice them up, each take a roll out, let it thaw, slice it up, and then you're going to be able to cook it. And you really want to bake it at 325 for approximately 15 minutes. The key for good shortbread is you do not want to cook it until it's golden brown. If it's golden brown, then you've cooked it too long, because then they will really dry out. So you want to take it out before they get golden brown, knowing that these are going to continue to cook while they're on the cookie sheet after you've taken them out of the oven. And then they are absolutely delicious. So remember, you do not want it to get golden brown. Do not let the edges get brown, or else you've cooked it too long. Now, when you're forming the shortbread, you really want to get them into rectangular rolls. And you can do this on any sort of silicone baking mat if you have one. Otherwise, just go ahead and use wax paper. Now, you'll notice here that we are using what looks like flour, but it's actually powdered sugar that we're using just to make sure that the dough does not stick. And as long as the rectangles are of a consistent size, it doesn't matter how long or how short your roll of dough is. The really important thing is to get them in a nice, consistent rectangular shape. The other thing is, because this doesn't have eggs, they usually can store a little bit longer in the freezer than you would normally store any other type of cookie dough. It can also store in the refrigerator a little bit longer as well, but if you're not going to cook it within a day or two, then I would just keep it in the freezer until you're really ready that you're going to cook these up. And they make absolutely delicious shortbread cookies. Okay, we have now taken the Clootie Dumpling out of the water because it's boiled for the right amount of time. It doesn't look very pretty right now, but don't worry, it will be tasty. It's very, very hot. We need to flip it over. So you do want to have silicone protection if you have it. And then be really careful flipping it over. If you jar the dumpling too much when you're flipping it over, you could cause a crack in the dumpling, and that would not be good.
Sometimes the clothes do not make the man.
When taking the muslin off of your dumpling at this point, you want to really be very careful when you're pulling it off, because it's created a nice skin on that dumpling that's going to give it the gorgeous brown color and will allow it to bake evenly in the oven.
So you don't ruin the...
So be very gentle. Now we put it into a preheated oven at 350 for 30 minutes to allow the skin to brown, which gives us a little opportunity to relax.
Look at that beautiful Clootie dumpling.
It's done.
It's done.
It's a labor of love.
And it's
This Clootie dumpling is great for a holiday Scottish fry-up. Slice of Clootie dumpling, fry it up in a pan with Lorne sausage and potato scones. It's delicious. That concludes our day of Scottish cooking. Time for me to drive home. Okay, I am exhausted from the day of Scottish cooking, but I am excited to see what I get in day 4 of my craft event. I love it when it's something like a little treat of some sort. And today we've got 2 pom-poms, tiny little pom-poms for the hat patterns, and 3 small buttons to be used on day 8 of the raglan sweater. Attach these by either using a very small needle to sew through the buttons or hot gluing them on evenly spaced throughout the front of the sweater. And it says that they hot glued gunned theirs. I love these. These are going to be so cute on top of my little sweaters. And I just want to thank you for being with me on my Scottish day of cooking and for hanging out in my Vlogmas. Cheers and good night.